Okay, everybody, it's that time again. ah, ugh, hey, everybody. Yeah, Choco Pie theft, sexualized kids' clothing, Halloween, kicking out the Chinese, ouch, and Johnny Somali. These are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today on the episode of RIK, Retired in Korea. And we're going to dip into some neighboring countries as well. So with that, I am Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're going to be talking about these things here. So we're going to take our latte, which is a salted caramel with a dark roast hazelnut bean that we have, and came out really, really good. So I'm pretty happy with that. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to jump right into this. And for those of you who don't know, a little bit of background about me. I'm retired here in Korea. You might be thinking, well, how is that possible? Korea's not really known as being a retirement-friendly destination like Philippines, Thailand, Portugal, or other places. And that's absolutely true. Usually in Korea, if you want the retirement visa, you have to invest something like $500,000 into the Korean business or economy or something. And yeah, my pockets are not that deep at all. So yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. So with that, we were able to retire here on those visas, and we just need to renew them like every 3 years, I think it is. So we'll be redoing those here pretty soon. It's either 3 or 5 years. It escapes me, but the wife's got it on the calendar, and we just renew it. Boom, we're good to go. So with that, being retired overseas is a little bit different. The cool thing is by leaving the United States, we retired at 54. We were able to retire early by coming overseas. Now, a lot of people were probably like, "Oh, how did you retire overseas in Korea and Seoul? Isn't that, expensive?" We don't live in Seoul, so it's not that expensive. Terry pops up and says, "Hey, good morning, Steve. Good morning. Good to see you again." Yeah, a lot of good stuff we're going to be talking about here, and thank you for the like. Terry's a regular on here, and today we're going to be talking about the Choco Pie theft, sexualized kids' clothing, Halloween, because they had a terrible thing happen on Halloween here in Korea this last year or whatever, kicking out Chinese and Johnny Somali, which is the nuisance streamer. So we're going to be jumping into that. So with that, let's just go ahead and we'll jump into this. So, excuse me, I'm going to take a swig of this. You all can like and subscribe to the channel, which would help things out immensely, and we'll just go right to the desktop. So this is from the Korean Times. Prosecutor seeks suspended sentence in the Choco Pie theft. For those of you who don't know, Choco Pie is it's a Choco Pie. Yeah, look it up. It's a thing. They're pretty good. I mean, it's junk food, but it is what it is. You can get them. It's a little pie with some marshmallow filling, and it has some bread, and then it's covered in chocolate. It's a big sugar rush. So anyway, in this whole case here was kind of interesting. Because it's not just about the Choco Pie. There is more about this than just the theft of a Choco Pie. And so this is Lee Min-kyung, head of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions. This is going to come into play. Stages a solo protest in front of the Jeonju District Court calling for an acquittal of the so-called Choco Pie theft case. And this all started out, requested a suspended sentence for a 41-year-old security guard accused of stealing snacks worth, get this, 1,050 won, which is about 73 cents, from another company's office refrigerator, overturning a 50,000 won fine imposed by a lower court. So, suspended sentence. Theft of a Choco Pie as a security card from basically a company refrigerator. Okay. Nobody likes having their food stolen out of the company refrigerator. You see the videos of people they end up, bringing food. Somebody else eats their food, and then they put ghost peppers in the food, and they wait, and then you can find out who stole your food. Yeah, that's kind of hilarious. But during an appellate hearing at the Jeonju District Court on Thursday, although the theft charge against the defendant was clear, the court showed leniency, giving minor value of the items. The defendant had prior convictions, including theft, and received a suspended sentence in 2019 after claiming he could lose his job. Despite this, he took another person's property lightly and committed the same offenses without remorse. This is kind of interesting because with that, part of my background in history is I actually worked as a security guard. Upscale security, I worked for G4S, which is the largest security company in the world. Thankfully, my tenure was short because it was in the United States and upscale security. And even though it was upscale, I have never seen worse security people in the world. I thought the U.S. military had some low standards when it came down to, some people obviously shouldn't be in the military. It wasn't until I got into security. Holy crap. Wow. I was really surprised at who they hire for security. So, I'm not digging in and, but some people shouldn't be security guards, but considering that most security guards are just a body, they need somebody for officer presence dressed in a uniform to, if some bad person says, hey, there's a security guard, we'll change their mind and they'll go on somewhere else. That's basically it. Security guard, the main thing is observe and report. During my time in the military, during my time in law enforcement, corrections, as a firearms instructor, contracted to teach military police at Fort Carson, and then, doing all types of concealed carry classes. I did that. I also did a number of more dynamic, I did competition shooting and things like that and training. And all of this centered around, especially with the concealed carry weapons permit training that I would do. I would have extensive training in regards to law enforcement and self-defense and so on and so forth. And part of this involved security training. And with that security training, there is a lot to know. And unfortunately, the people that I worked with did not know. And the company that trained them, G4S, did not train in the aspects of law enforcement for being a guard in the United States, let alone the state laws for Colorado and what they could and could not do. And it's no stretch of the imagination that you're going to have a lot of problems with security guards. Some places require licenses in other states. Other places, you have mandatory training that you have to do. Some of them do background checks, others don't. I'm just surprised. And So anyway, I kind of understand the security thing, and I have seen security guards eat people's food from, the places that they were securing, and it's just not a cool thing to do. Again, some people shouldn't be security guards. But this takes a turn because it actually continues on, and that it's not just about the theft of a Choco Pie. No, it is a little bit more. And prosecutors acknowledged that the stolen items, a Choco Pie that was about 73 cents, and a custard cake amounted to $1,051. Adding a conviction leading to a job loss would be excessively harsh. If you have priors for theft and then you're a security guard and you continue to steal even though the amount is low, I don't know. That, to me, I would not want that person to be a security guard. They also noted that efforts to listen to public opinion before reaching a fair conclusion, ultimately recommending a suspended sentence as a final act of leniency. That is a slippery slope. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Are we getting into democracy, the mob rule, and where the mob, we got to check with the people to see what is fair and equitable, if it is indeed fair and equitable. And again, if this was your business, and you had somebody that had priors for theft and they continued to steal, even though regardless it's a small amount, Choco Pie and a custard pie, again, things you can find in convenience store for less than $1. If they do that with something small and insignificant, there's an opportunity to do worse on a larger scale. And again, it shows a decay of morals, in my opinion. So anyway, earlier, 12-member citizen review panel convened by the Jeongju District Prosecutor's Office concluded that a suspended sentence was appropriate after reviewing the case and first trial verdict. The defendant's attorney argued the case itself should have never gone to trial, suggesting his client was unfairly targeted due to his labor union activities. CCTV footage shows another person was also present, yet only the defendant was accused. We believe this criminal case may have been used to suppress union members. Another person was present, but did they steal a Choco Pie? It doesn't say that they stole another person was there and also stole items. It just says that they were there. It's, and is there a law in Korea where it says if you see a crime in progress that you're supposed to, report that crime? Was it another security guard? Was it somebody else, maybe a janitor? We don't know. I just find it very, very strange that there are some details being left out in this, and it's like, well, there was somebody else there, and why weren't they charged? Well, did the other person steal anything or not? And regardless of whether somebody else was there and whether somebody else stole something, that doesn't negate the fact that this individual stole something, even though it was an insignificant amount. Yet somebody that's got priors and stuff like this, and it says they believe to suppress union members. Well, if you're if you're a union member, I don't know. If you belong to a union, and I have in my past work experience, is that you should probably be a good example if you belong to a union or, so stealing probably isn't a good idea. So the union should punish this guy as well because you're putting a bad light on the union. And for the lawyer to even bring this up and say, oh, it's trying to suppress union members. And it's like, well, your union members condone theft? It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I don't know. Terry says, once they steal, there's a good chance they'll do it again. Lack of integrity. I think you're right. So yeah, just kind of the interesting things that pop up here in Korea. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about sexualized kids clothing here in Korea, and this is a doozy because it kind of deals with translation, and some people don't think about what words mean when they're translated from Korean to English or English to Korean, or just the phrasing of words and how they can have alternate meanings. And this one is one of the ones where, they should have ran it by a foreigner and said, hey, does this make sense? Is this a good idea? And apparently they didn't. So let's go ahead and get it. Ooh, this is going to be a doozy. Top 10 kids to recall girls' clothing over Come Inside Me design. And there it is. Come inside me. You have a bunny inside of a sock. Why? I don't know why that would even be a thing. I mean, holy crow. What? Is it innocuous? Is it so innocent that, oh, come inside me to the fuzzy warm sock? I mean, are there any sexual overtones on this? For kids' clothing, would you dress your kids in something that said, come inside me with that? I would not. There is absolutely no way. It's a rabbit peeking out of the sock with come inside me. Top 10 kids at South Korean's children's clothing brand said Thursday it will recall all of its girls' sweatshirt sets following the criticism over the sexually suggestive English designs printed on the garments. The Cha Yun Art Fleece Setup, a pink sweatshirt set, was released in collaboration with the local artist. It features an illustration of a rabbit peeking out of a sock alongside the phrase, come inside me. The criticism soon poured in that the sexual connotations of the expression made it inappropriate for children's clothing. You think? As criticism poured in, the company issued an official apology saying, "We deeply apologize to our customers for the inappropriate wording printed on some of our recent products. Although the product was created in collaboration with an external artist, we take full responsibility for failing to properly review the wording's appropriateness. The company will offer full refunds for customers regardless of when they made the purchases." The collaborating artist, Lee Cha-Yoon, who designed the clothing, also apologized on Instagram saying, "I failed to realize that the phrase could be perceived as inappropriate. I should have exercised greater caution, especially because the product was intended for children. I reflected on the influence of a creator's work can have. I will approach future projects with greater care to ensure my messages are always positive. Top 10 Kids children's line, Shin Song Tongsang's SPA brand Top 10 is widely recognized among parents for offering affordable yet fashionable clothing." Come inside me. It's just like, I mean, what? I understand. Hey, what could we do that's cute and fun and, for girls? And nothing says cute and innocent and fun and happy than a bunny in a sock saying, "Come inside me." She doesn't have any foreign friends, and the company didn't have any foreigners or people that maybe lived in the United States or somebody that was well versed in the English language and the nuances of English and how this could be perceived. I mean, I saw this, and it took a millisecond, if that, to say, "Oh yeah, that's problematic." It is just nothing but sexual connotation there. I don't understand how that even. I mean, the sock is cute, the bunny's cute. I get that. But the phrase, that just blew it right there. Out of all the words that you could pick out of the English language to string together, you're going to choose those 3 words. Ouch, ouch. And, that happens when you're overseas and some foreign countries and things like that. You'll find some things that definitely, it doesn't make sense. There are translational errors with certain things. Like, I remember one of the old ones from back in the day was Ford with the Nova, and they tried to, which I guess in Spanish means no go, Nova, no go, and so that kind of had to be changed. And there were some other phrases or words that make sense in one language, but when you use them in another language, it's like, yeah, that's not working. You can't do that. It is what it is. So I thought that was kind of, good. I mean, but I have seen things in Korea over my 15 plus years of being in Korea over the years where I've seen these translational errors. And honestly, there are people that are like, oh, it truly was an innocent mistake. So I'm going to have to say I side on the innocent translation. That the use of the words and that they didn't know the culture of the United States, which is hypersexualized, unfortunately, and seeing how this could be misconstrued and inappropriate. There still are innocent people in the world like this, and so it's kind of like it's sad that this has to come to this. But yeah, especially in this day and age, you really need to check your P's and Q's and dot the T's or dot the I's and cross the T's or T's and I's or whatever that is. You need to be careful. So my question to you all, do you think that was sexualized or was it an honest mistake? I mean, put that in the comments section and let me know. I would be interested in hearing your 2 cents on that. The bunny in a sock with the words "come inside me." Yeah. It's a good thing that they stopped it, though. They stopped it in its tracks, and that's kind of an important thing. Considering that, what is the day today? Today is what? Today is 1 November. So we had Halloween yesterday here in Korea. There's still some places that are doing some Halloween. I think there's going to be one today close to where I live. And some people are going to dress up. But not too long ago, it ends up in Itaewon in Seoul, Korea, which used to be a pretty cool place, had a Halloween tragedy. And a lot of people died because of overcrowding and crowds, and people panicked and people started rushing and running, and people got crushed to death. It was really, really rough. So we're going to take a look at that. And that was just a horrible tragedy. Seoul's Halloween stirs Itaewon tragedy memories as police tighten safety controls. So, yeah, there it is, Itaewon Street, and they kind of cordoned it off. They got a bunch of police there. That's not bad. I've seen some videos and it was just totally packed. And the thing is, it was a Halloween celebration, but nobody in the videos that I've seen or in this here, nobody's dressed up. So it's just like Halloween returned to Seoul on Friday night. Memories of deadly Itaewon crowd crush lingered over the city's party districts where festival crowds packed Itaewon, Hongdae, and other areas. While authorities issued safety alerts and worked to manage swelling foot traffic. Police began blocking entry to the alley behind the Hamilton Hilton, the site of the 2022 tragedy that killed 159 people. Yeah, it was horrible. Guided pedestrians through nearby streets. Subways would skip Itaewon Station from 11 p.m. due to overcrowding and sent mobile safety alerts around 10:30 warning that dense crowds near the station could be dangerous. In Hongdae, more than 100,000 revelers gathered in the nightlife zone, prompting large electronic billboards flash very crowded warnings. Officials estimate between 105 and 110,000 people were in the tourist area, with another 30,000 in the Hongik University station. Safety workers patrolled the streets, calling for people to keep walking, avoid standing still, while police installed temporary fences to direct one-way pedestrian flow. People were dressed in elaborate Halloween costumes inspired by movies, anime, and K-pop culture. In most of the videos, you didn't see anybody. So it was just very different than what I've seen. And even locally, you had way more people dressing up than that. Government said that it, kind of built up safety measures and so on and so forth. And anticipating larger crowds as it coincided with a Friday and the global K-content boom and the recent resumption of visa-free entry for Chinese tourists. And this is, we're going to get into some more stuff about the Chinese. That's been kind of an interesting thing. Adam says, this also reminds of a Travis Scott concert. Yeah, isn't it? Ouch. It's just very, very, very problematic. In Itaewon, police whistles echoed along the World Food Street as officers tried to maintain order. Other popular nightlife areas, including Apgujeong's Rodeo Street and Kongguk University Food Alley, were also busy but less congested. At the Itaewon Alley where the tragedy occurred, mourners placed white chrysanthemums and pumpkin-shaped lanterns in a memorial display titled Path of Memory and Safety. Civic groups held an event called a Festival of Mourning and Safety, where participants in costume honored the victims and called for continued vigilance in crowd management. That was a huge thing that happened in Itaewon. Again, in 2022, they ended up having a Halloween festival, and there were so many people there. There wasn't much law enforcement. Panic ensued, and the crowds just end up rushing, and you can't get away. It was just so much. You get so much force of a crowd, and it ends up people were trampled to death, crushed to death. And again, it was 159 people, which was horrible. I was here for the '88 Olympics. I've been on transit systems and places. I've been in riots, not as a rioter in Korea, where there was 2,000 or 3,000 people present. And when you get large groups of people, all you need is just a moment of panic. A loud noise goes off or something, and the whole crowd can go, and If you fall down, you're done. And even then, if you stand up, because of the force of the crowd, it'll crush people up against walls, and they don't have places to go. So, yeah, and again, the majority of the videos that I saw from last night, the majority of the people weren't dressed up. I mean, I watched like a 5-minute video of people going down that alley, and it was packed on both sides, unlike the picture that we ended up seeing here on the article. And there was nobody for 5 minutes that was dressed up in a Halloween costume. So I'm kind of at a loss of why 100,000 people would go and do that if nobody's dressing up. I really just don't get that. It is what it is, but I don't know. It just seemed odd. I think people wanted to go because that's the thing to do, and you might get to see people, but the majority of people weren't dressing up. And so, whereas in the United States, Halloween is a real big thing, and a lot of people dress up. And matter of fact, even at the military base yesterday, we saw some people dressed up as like Spider-Man, I think it was. We saw a Jedi and a few others that were dressed up. Saw like the Grinch-like person from one of the Grinch movies or whatever. It wasn't the Grinch. But, there's people that were obviously dressed up and things on the military base, which was way more than what I saw in the videos of, Itaewon and things like that. So, yeah, very, very different, very interesting. And, an unfortunate tragedy indeed back in 2022. So, again, you got to be safe. And when you have tons of people, that just makes things even more problematic. With that being said, moving on from that, always be careful. And now we're going to kind of dip over to China. We're going to talk about China, about kicking out the Chinese. And here in Korea, we've been talking about the Chinese, and Korea opened up basically Korea as a tourism spot for visa-free visitation. Kind of like with U.S., some citizens, usually U.S. citizens, can go to a country. You don't have to apply for a visa. It's, you could do your 30, 60, or 90 days depending on the country's immigration, but it's you don't have to do anything special. You just show up and you can be a tourist. Same thing, Korea opened up to China, and there's been a lot of problems here in Korea with China because a while back, it ends up that Korea was kind of mad at China because a lot of Chinese were coming over to Korea. They're buying properties in Jeju-do, which is an island south of the peninsula of Korea, and heck, even in Seoul, a lot of Chinese were buying properties in apartments and condos and so on and so forth. And Korea was like, hey, wait a second, this is, you're buying too much of our property. And so they wanted to kind of cut that back. And one of the instances that that Korea brought up to China is that you Chinese can come to Korea and buy property, but Korean people can't go to China and buy property. And yeah, that was kind of kind of grinding, and people had problems with that. And so, that kind of fueled the fire in regards to that type of thing. And then, to make it even worse, Chinese tourists ended up acting the fool, and it got publicized on social media and on the Korean news, and it just keeps coming, unfortunately. So we got a bunch of Chinese people, and I'm not saying all Chinese people are bad, but when you've got a bunch of idiots, and with the advent of social media, the stupidity of the few can hurt everyone. And, we had the incidents of the Chinese that were in a restaurant. They were told that they couldn't smoke inside the restaurant. I don't know. Can you smoke in restaurants in China? Is that still a thing? But obviously here in Korea, you cannot. And they were told to extinguish their cigarettes. They get loud. They're drunk. They put the cigarettes out onto the table. They tried to hide them under. And then when they were told to leave because they kept, trashing the place, they actually went into the bathrooms and they kind of vandalized the bathrooms. And, how seriously, really, if you can't hold your liquor or you can't be a responsible tourist, Because remember, you're a representative of the country that you come from, and you're acting the fool. It's probably going to get televised in today's day and age. You have CCTV cameras everywhere. You have social media. Everybody's got a phone, and everybody's got TikTok or YouTube or whatever, World Star, whatever it is. All of this stuff is going to get recorded, and you're going, what you do and how you act is going to basically you're representing your country. But a number of people from China have acted the fool, and unfortunately, that has put a bad taste in the mouth of many Koreans, into where you have children that are defecating on, parents allowing their children to defecate on UNESCO sites, historical sites, not going to bathrooms, throwing trash away everywhere except in trash receptacles, being rude and loud and yelling insults and so on and so forth. It's very, very rough. And the Korean people don't like it. If you treat them with disrespect and you're rude and you're loud and you break the rules, and after being told, hey, please, you can't smoke in here, we're sorry, mianeo, and you still act as if you're the god, how dare you? I'm paying for this. I should be allowed to smoke, or have that entitled attitude. It's not really going to go well. That's all I'm saying. George pops in and says, hey, happy Halloween. Yeah, it's 1 November here, and so it's yesterday there. So it's happy Halloween for all of you in the United States, for those in the United States. But there's still some Halloween events going on. Like there should be one today where we're at, because it's Saturday, and I think it's from 3 to 8 p.m. So we're going to see if that is going to fly. Terry says, Texas passed a law banning the Chinese and other communist countries from buying land here. They kept buying land around our military bases. Really? Wow. That's kind of problematic. And this might seem hypocritical, because I bought my apartment that I am in now, that we're in now, and I'm a foreigner, obviously, and I was able to buy property. So how do you feel about foreign countries coming in and buying land of another country? This is, for the most part, if you're here on a visa and you're contributing to the country and you're paying your taxes or your health care or whatever it is, you're not being a drain on that society that you're in. I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem comes is when you abuse the system and you become a drain on that country. Yeah, that probably shouldn't be a thing, and we're going to see more countries ratcheting up and tightening up the standards and getting rid of people that are leeching off of the countries that they're in, and China's going to be one of those, at least when it comes to Japan. George says, I hate to say there are some Americans that have given the rest of us a bad name. Look at that idiot kick streamer. Oh, yeah, Johnny Somali. We're going to be talking about Johnny Somali. And we're going to talk about a couple other streamers and stuff. That'll come a little bit later. But, yeah, he's a world-class idiot that has no morals. Adam, hey, Adam. He says, you got Vitali arrested, Somali arrested. You got the American tourist, British tourist, whole Western tourist you expected to speak English. Oops. But then Western tourists aren't bothered to learn the language. That's true. And there's some, my language skills in Korean, as much time as I spent in Korea, are lacking. But with that being said, I don't act the fool. I don't act stupid. And I know a number of other, people that are here that are foreigners that have retired here, similar to the situation of me and my wife, and they don't know Korean that well, but they know that you don't act stupid and you don't do stupid in the country that you're in. Whether you're here on a visa, you're retired, or whether you're on a tourist visa, whatever it is, don't do stupid. It's kind of a golden rule thing. It's kind of a should be a worldwide known thing that you don't act stupid when you're in another country. But when you have Vitali, Adam was talking about Vitali He's actually a Russian with a green card in the United States. He goes around and he's just a horrible person. He's a streamer, Twitch streamer. So in other words, he streams live, kind of like what we're doing now. But he gets paid, and people will tell him to do this, and they'll donate money, or they'll donate money and say, "Do this thing," and then he does it in order to get that money. Well, he's been very problematic. He's also been arrested for an assault on a woman who was jogging by his house or whatever. He is really a disgusting individual. Well, he went to the Philippines, and what he ended up doing is harassing. He actually committed crimes against Filipino people, and the Philippines wasn't putting up with it. They're like, yeah, they arrested him. He tried to steal a motorcycle. He stole a security guard's hat. Somebody said that he tried to steal a security guard's gun. Another time he stole a fan, a big, huge fan from a store. He took items and ran away. The whole spiel for him, the shtick, was that he would do these things in hoping that stores, clerks, people would run after him, and that would make content. And I got hundreds of thousands of views or millions of views, and he would get paid a lot of money. That's the whole thing. Regardless of the fact that he broke numerous laws here in the Philippines, and he got arrested, and yeah, he's been sitting in the Philippine prison, and it's going to be a while. There's cases of people that have been charged in the Philippines with crimes, and they sit around for 1, 2, or 3 years before they even go to trial. Vitaly has lost a lot of weight, and yeah, like Terry says, he's not liking the Philippine prisons. Yeah, it is horrible prison conditions. And he was a pretty buff guy. You know, of course, he took steroids and a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, he's about half the size that he was before. He has seriously lost weight. He tried bribing government officials to get him out because he had money. He ended up selling his multi-million-dollar home. His mom tried to get into the mix, and she's a streamer as well. It's just crazy, crazy stupid. And, you know, the fake no-tear crying, all of that. But yet it's just horrible. So it's going to be a few years, I think, before Vitaly even goes to court, just because he pissed off the Philippine government. Again, there is no guarantee of a speedy trial just because you're an American or you're an American green card holder. Supposedly, the American embassy was contacted, and they're like, nope, you did stupid, you're going to reap it. So it's not working out for Vitaly. And but I remember a video that he did, one of his streams. He says, well, if I get in trouble and I go to prison, I'm man enough. I can do the time. Yeah, he doesn't look like, it looks like he's changed his mind. He's been begging to get out, saying, oh, I have a mental disorder. Oh, I medically have problems. I shouldn't be in prison, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to do everything in the book to get out of the Philippine prison. And they're like, no, you're not going anywhere. Adam says, yeah, I've seen so many cases here in the UK, random people telling people minding their own business to speak English only, but then they go to Spain, they can't be bothered to learn the languages. Yeah, I mean, whenever you travel, I've traveled to a lot of countries. Excuse me. Swig of latte will fix this right up. By the way, you should like the video and subscribe to the channel as I'm doing this. It'll give you something to do real quick. That was really good. Salted caramel, dark roast. Good stuff. But yeah, with that, in the UK, people mind their own business to speak English, but only then they go to Spain and they can't be bothered to learn the languages. And that's something. I mean, every country that I've been to, I've tried to learn at least how to say please or thank you, at a minimum, And even here in Korea, I mean, I learned enough of the language that I can go order food, I can order beer, I can, find a bathroom, 화장실 어디서요? 어떻게 지내십니까? Ask how they're doing, 이름이 Steve Wilson입니다. Introduce myself and things like that. I can do simple conversations. And when you travel, you should probably learn, some phrases and words to kind of put some effort into it. And every country that I've been to, where even if I just learn please or thank you or hello or goodbye, or thank you very much, whatever it is, those are the kind of the Barney basics that you should learn. The countries that I've been to, the people have been appreciative of that. So yeah, it's, you should do that. With that being said, in the advancement of technology, and I'm an old guy, I'm 59, but now we have cell phones to where you can speak and then it will translate and spit it out in the host language. So really, there's no excuse to be stupid in another country, because not only can you learn a few phrases in that country's language, you also have your phone, and you can still get to a point and be respectful and polite, but yet some people still won't do that. They'll still be stupid, and cases of that are Batali and Johnny Somali and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we'll skip from that, since we're talking about YouTubers and influencers and stuff like that, and something's a little bit closer to home here about some people that were arrested for trying to abduct and kill a streamer. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. It's like crazy. Here it is. 2 arrested for attempted murder and abduction of popular YouTuber in Incheon, which is absolutely crazy. Adam pops up and he says, yeah, we can't forget Logan Paul in Japan. Pathetic man-child. Absolutely. Yeah. He was the one that went to the Japanese as a place where a lot of people ended up committing suicide. He filmed somebody who had hanged themselves. Yeah, he's all for the hopes of getting views. So he knew what he was getting into. And yeah, he's a despicable human being. I don't like Logan Paul or any of the Pauls there. It's just absolutely crazy. 2 arrested for this. This is actually crazy. For the attempted kidnapping and attempted murder of a popular gaming YouTuber, appeared for pretrial detention at Incheon District Court, which usually if you're in Incheon, that's kind of like the Incheon International Airport. That's usually where everybody flies into. Kind of a big deal, big place, close to Seoul. 2 men have been arrested on charges of kidnapping and attempted murder, a well-known YouTuber with more than 1 million subscribers. They had detained a man in his 20s and another in his 30s on charge of attempted murder and joint confinement. Judge Yu Ram in the Incheon District Court issued warrants citing risk of flight concerns, which is good. So it's glad that they're taking hold of these people. And usually, if it's a non-violent crime here in Korea, that you'll be left on your own recognizance until the trial date comes, which could be a while. And you'll see that in the Johnny Somali case. But in violent crimes and things like this, they will detain you because of the flight risk and the severity of the crimes. According to police, the suspects actually abducted the man in his 30s around 10:40 p.m. in an underground parking lot. They lured him by claiming they would repay borrowed money, then forced him into a vehicle and drove 200 kilometers to Gumsong County, South Chungcheong Province, where they attempted to kill him with a blunt weapon. Wow. Before the meeting, the victim had contacted police, warning his life was in danger. Investigators tracked the suspects through CCTV footage and arrested them in the park around 2:40 a.m. on Monday, roughly 4 hours after the abduction. The victim sustained facial injuries from the assault, but was not in critical condition. The police said the suspects had financial disputes with the victim. The victim told investigators that the pair owed him money. The CCTV thing is a huge thing here in Korea. They're everywhere. And like I said, they abducted this guy, and 4 hours later, they were able to track him through CCTV footage to the park. Is wild. But that just shows you there are a ton of cameras here in Korea. So if you do something, yeah, it's after the fact, but what they can do, I mean, the fact that they're able to get him and rescue this guy and arrest these 2 guys for the kidnapping and the attempted murder just goes to show, yeah, I know a lot of Americans, we shouldn't have cameras. It's Big Brother watching over you. Here in Korea, there's a different type of attitude with that, and it's a little bit hard to get used to, especially if you're an American coming over here to Korea, and you don't want your privacy violated. You don't think that CCTV cameras everywhere is a good thing. They could be misused, and Big Brother's watching you. Well, in numerous accounts and incidents here in Korea, CCTV cameras have aided in the apprehension of numerous criminals. So there's something to be said for that. And then with the CCTV cameras, it's they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. So it's kind of a reminder to not be stupid, whether you're a foreigner or a national of Korea, a citizen of Korea. But my question to you all, and you can put this in the comment section, do you think CCTV cameras are good? In this situation, it was good. Can they be misused? Probably. But, where do you draw the line? For here in Korea, it actually helps. And, definitely in this instance, in this incident, it definitely helped. So, yeah, the guy was picked up. They took the guy at 10:40 p.m. and then at 2:40 a.m., they were able to save him because of CCTV cameras. And again, I worked in security. I worked in 2 prisons, in medium armor prisons. I was an electronics technician. I worked on control panels that kept prison doors closed and did security cameras and stun fences and detection systems, all of that stuff inside of cell houses and prisons. So I'm pretty, I've installed systems and cameras and over fiber optics and the whole 9 yards. So I'm pretty adept and have a lot of experience in that. And it is a great tool, at least within the prison system, but obviously it's a great tool here in Korea. Think about it, in cases where there's abductions or violent crimes or even just traffic crimes, you're able to get CCTV footage to say, hey, because you always get one person says one thing, the other person says another thing, and, usually there's the truth in the middle of that. And CCTV cameras and camera footage is able to kind of say, hey, yeah, this person, what they said wasn't really 100% true, and what this person said wasn't 100% true. The video footage does not lie. And so there's something to be said about having CCTV cameras. But yeah, imagine that, streamers and people going crazy because they owed money. And so the answer is, I'm not going to pay it back, and so we're just going to take them out and kill them. Again, somebody's moral compass has been busted, but thankfully these people have been, thankfully they've been apprehended. With that, let's go on to Johnny Somali. Johnny Somali is going to back what Adam says. He's a nuisance streamer like Vitaly. And Johnny came to Korea. He's had problems in Japan and Israel. He actually did some jail time in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And then he was arrested in Israel. And his whole shtick is the same thing. Let's harass, and we'll break some laws, even if they're misdemeanors or minor crimes. And then because of the language problems, I'm going to get off, but I'm going to be able to stream and make money. And that's his whole thing, is to piss people off, break laws, harass people, and then people pay him money to do that through the streaming of Twitch or Kick or whatever it is. Johnny got caught. He's been here over a year, and he still hasn't been punished yet. He hasn't got his prison time yet or fines or anything like that. It has been an ongoing process. And here in Korea, the legal system, again, these aren't violent crimes, so he's left on his own recognizance, but he can't leave Korea, and he can't work for a Korean employer. So that is and then he's not supposed to do stupid stuff. Well, yeah, that's not going to happen. Not with Johnny Somali, whose real name is Ramzi Khalid Ismail, and his family has kind of like disowned him, the whole 9 yards, and I would too. If that was my kid, I would come to Korea and just beat the crap out of him, and I would disown him, and that would be it. He hangs around a Korean who is also a streamer, but not as infamous as Johnny. and Hank Yu he goes by that name. I can't remember his real name, but Hank Yu has gone on streaming and live with Johnny, saying that he hates his parents. His parents are some celebrity. His dad was like a judge or something like that from a long time ago, or his great grandfather was. And he said openly that he hates his family, he hopes his parents die, and that he gets the inheritance, and that's all they're good for. He's really a despicable human being, along with Johnny. And even if Johnny Somali is just playing a character, it still doesn't take away from the point that he's being stupid and he's breaking laws. And in other places, he's been able to get away with it for the most part because it's like, yeah. But Korea has apprehended him, and it's been over a year, and he's been catching more charges. Ferrithus. Hey, Ferrithus is back. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, sir. Always good to see you there. Terry Lay says he did the same stuff in Thailand, was arrested and escorted to the airport. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. They should have put him in prison. George pops up and says, and Japan. Yeah, he did the Japan thing. That was absolutely, he did stupid there in Japan as well. But the problem is, if you let somebody go with a slap on the wrist, you're going to have more nuisance streamer coming to your country and causing problems. And that's exactly what happened. Johnny came over here and he started making money and doing stupid stuff, and other streamers came to Korea and they started doing stupid stuff, and then Korea's like, whoa. And matter of fact, there was some other streamer that they were coming to get him, but he left Korea when he found out, and he was able to leave Korea, so he's probably not going to come back to Korea. But if they don't punish this severely, this is just going to open the doors to Korea for nuisance streamers, and there are going to be more stupid people that are going to do stuff like this. And like George brought up, in Japan, there's a number of people, stupid streamers like Ice Poseidon and other people who went to Japan and did the exact same thing for views and likes and making money. So in other words, if I'm on a streaming service like Kick or Twitch or whatever, and then as it's going live, people send a message, say, hey, go up and, pour the drink on the floor and I'll give you $5. And so it's kind of, it's stupid. It is monumentally. So he'll go, pour the drink on the floor, and then he'll get that money that the person donated. So that's all predicated on, hey, you do stupid stuff and you get paid money. Well, you're still a grown adult, and if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law. And it's funny that Johnny he tried to make that a defense and saying, well, people told me to do it and blah, blah, blah. I tried to play ignorance. There is no ignorance to the law. It is absolutely crazy. Terry pops up and says they would have loved Johnny in the Thai prison system. Oh, yes. Oh, he wouldn't survive. He's like, Johnny's like 5'3" or whatever. He's a POS and, tries to act big and bad. But when he's confronted, he shrinks down and he's just a bully. He really is. And he only goes after women and people that are smaller than him. He's just really, truly a despicable human being. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't. There's very few people that I call disgusting and despicable, but he is one of them. Ferrithus pops in and laughs, and he says, I'm so glad I'm not following all that drama. So convoluted for a little bit of coin. But the problem is, it's not a little bit of coin. It is a lot of money that these streamers are getting for doing this, harassing people, Vitaly, and committing crimes and then just kind of jetting off and going to some other country and doing the same thing. The funny thing is, Johnny Somali said that him and Hank Yu wanted to go to China. Well, if you do that, they might arrest you and then you're never heard from again. They don't take no shit over there, Thailand. But I think countries need to come down hard on these nuisance streamers. Philippines has actually changed their laws and to say, well, if you make a video and then there's the faces of people in your video, and if they're kids, you can't do it. You have to blur out everything. You have to have it to where you have a link that if somebody watches your video and you were in their video and you don't want to be in their video, that you have to be able to email them and contact them, and you have to remove my image from your video. I don't know how that's going to happen. How is Philippines going to enforce that? But a lot of bloggers, normal people who just blog their travels, travel blogging and stuff like that, they're like, how are you going to do this? How can you, it's going to ruin a lot of tourism. And in regards to tourism, you have like Thailand, you have, other countries. And then when you get down to Philippines, it's kind of like they're lower on the list for tourism. Well, when that happened, that kind of had a ripple effect, because then people are like, well, I'm just taking video and for home movies or whatever, or just for our trip to document our trip or anniversary or birthdays or whatever it is. And now the Philippine government is saying, yeah, you can't do that, basically, unless you go through all these huge hurdles. People are like, yeah, well, just go to Thailand, instead of Philippines. So it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and it wasn't tempered with reality. It's just a thing. Let's see. Terry said they would have put one of those kids' sweatshirts you were talking about. Yeah, probably would have. Thai prisons aren't they're no joke at all. But with Johnny Somali, he's still here, and it's been over a year. I know we went down a rabbit hole. Fairtha says, I don't know how much you would have to pay me to get myself in trouble for that. I'm not rich, but I'm doing well, and I have my peace. Yeah, same here. There's the way I was raised and my time in the military, always be a good steward, don't be an ugly American, all of those things. There's no amount of money for me to break the law, and especially to harass and commit crimes against other people, just because they're a third world country, or because they speak another language, or I just don't get it. And unfortunately, with social media, there's good and bad sides of each of those. But when you have streaming companies that condone and pay people to use their platform, and they commit crimes and harass people, I just can't even support that company. So like Twitch and what was the other one? Was Kick was a big one. But they're really lenient, and they just kind of turn a blind eye because they're making money off of other people making money who are harassing and breaking the laws. That just pisses me off. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's very problematic. But with Johnny Somali, he's here in Korea. It's been over a year. He's caught multiple charges, and we're going to kind of run over some of the things because he still hasn't got a prison sentence. He still hasn't got the final punishment, which is very different. And a little bit of a rundown. If you commit a crime against a Korean national, or a Korean national against a Korean national, you go to the police and you file a report. And you submit, hey, this is what happened, this is it. The police will go over it, and they'll do their thing. And then if they see that there's enough evidence to support and say, the crime was committed, they'll turn that over to the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office will do their investigation, which could be 1 to 4 months, depending on the crime. And then if they rule and say, yes, there is justification for a court case, now they're going to proceed. They're going to recommend it's going to go to court, and they'll have a trial. The thing is that they're pretty damn sure that it's going to go to trial. It also means that they're pretty sure that there's going to be a conviction. So the prosecutor's office, once they do their investigation, their success rate is like 98%. So yeah, if it goes to the prosecutor, it doesn't look good. So that's where Johnny's at, and he's had a number of cases. And instead of having a case where you get a charge, and then you get your punishment, and then you go on and maybe you had a charge from something else because you did something stupid somewhere else. No, it's not that way. Here in Korea, even though you committed a number of offenses in different districts, all of those things will be heard, and you'll go to court for each one of those. Either you plead guilty and not guilty. If it's not guilty, then you have to go to trial before a judge. It's not like a jury trial, and that's going to be pushed back a number of months. And it just kind of it really draws out this process, and you can't leave Korea. And with that, at the end, once everything has been done, whether it's guilty, not guilty, or whatever it is, then they'll have a final court date of where they go over the sentencing and the fines and the prison or jail or whatever it is and give you a final number, for monetary damages or fines or whatever. And then if imprisonment, how many years that's going to be. But it's a long and drawn out process for nonviolent crimes. Johnny Panic pops up. Hey, welcome, Johnny. Says, easy rule, just be a decent human being. There you go. That's it. That is exactly it. And to be a decent human being, you don't even have to speak the language of the country that you're visiting. Just because that's like a world-renowned thing. Be a decent human being, and that transcends any language, because you're a decent human being, and other decent human beings will recognize that. So yeah, that's the answer. Ferrith says, Twitch is pretty hardline when it comes to enforcing community guidelines. Kick, not so much. Yeah, Kick is really, they're like the bottom of the barrel. They'll, the harassment and, committing crimes, we'll let it go because they're making big coin. But for Twitch, even Twitch it's still amazing the stuff that you see people do on Twitch, which is, I don't know, for my generation, stuff that you wouldn't do, but yet people do them on Twitch and to get paid money. But yeah, Kick is the bottom of the barrel. Kick is the bottom of the barrel. And Johnny has gotten banned off of YouTube and other social media, but he puts up fake accounts through other people's names to get his videos out. But he still goes out and does stupid stuff. So let's take a look and see the current status of Johnny Somali here. And here it is. Unreal. This is Legal Mindset, who does some excellent work in regards to getting the actual real deal information when it comes to Korea and the laws here. So he has a number of people that he knows here in Korea. He's widely traveled. He's been to Japan, Thailand, Korea a number of times, in other countries. Seems like a really awesome dude. But he verifies the information that he puts out, not like a lot of other YouTubers that talk about Johnny Somali. Oh, he's going to get 100 years or 50 years or 37 years. They don't understand the Korean legal system. Legal Mindset has actually gone to the pains of actually finding out what the legal system is. But what we end up having, let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. So he's got some great stuff. So hats off to him. So Johnny has a charge of obstruction to business that we see here. And that was disrupting business at a 7-Eleven. What Johnny ended up doing is he was drinking and getting drunk. He was already drunk in the 7-Eleven. He had ramen. He spilled the ramen, pouring drinks all over on the floor. He's throwing food at people in ramen. He was being loud, yelling at the employees, which is a disruption of business charge. And the penalty is up to 5 years imprisonment or fine up to 50 million won. Again, there's a sliding scale of, minimum or maximum. But Johnny had to plead guilty to that. Then he had another one for disrupting a bus system because he was going around and acting the fool. And again, he pled guilty to that one. Then there was a third obstruction of business charge for disrupting a ride at Lotte World. And the thing is, he live streams all of this stuff. Johnny is like an idiot because he breaks the law, but he videos himself live streaming breaking the law. And so there's no doubt in anybody's mind of what he did. And again, ignorance does not mean, oh, well, I didn't know it was a law in Korea. No, ignorance is not an excuse. But yeah, it's like you filmed yourself doing this, and other people complained about this and filed a report. And yeah, you did this. You interrupted the business. They had to cease their operations for a period of time. So they actually lost revenue. So that's why he got those obstruction of business charges. So for the Lotte World, he pled guilty on that. And then for there's another one. Obstruction of business count 4, disrupting a bus system by playing North Korean propaganda, which is absolutely crazy because, yeah, he played North Korean propaganda. And again, interrupting, people told him, no, don't do that. He's like, here's how that whole thing goes. So he's doing his streaming thing. He's trying to come up with ways to be harassing and problematic. And so he plays North Korean national anthem or, chants from North Korea or songs or whatever, which is kind of an illegal thing here in Korea. But the fact that he was disrupting a business by doing that, that's what he ended up doing. And it's just insane. It is just absolutely insane. So, he pled guilty to that. So we got 4 charges of that. And it's just amazing it wasn't just that he was just on his phone and then he just played he has an external speaker, like a JBL, whatever. It's connected via Wi-Fi. And so when he plays the music, it's not like it's just music from his phone. It's blared through this amplifier, this speaker that goes out, and everybody's like, what the hell's going on? Chanting pro North Korea things and stuff like that, and pro Japanese stuff and whatever. It was really, really disgusting on how he carried himself on the public transportation system, and you see it in all his streams. It's all recorded. All of that has been forwarded to the prosecutors, and it's like, and then Johnny will try to delete, the videos, but the prosecutors already have the videos, so it's for naught. So anyway, it ends up, let's get back to what we end up seeing. And, no, come on, get back. Seriously? I'm doing all kinds of weird stuff. So then he has a minor offense act of rotting fish and harassment. So he bought a rotting fish and he's chasing after people and, again, being harassing. That's a fine up to 100,000 won or 30 days detention. He pled guilty to that. There was a second minor offenses act. And again, it's like a misdemeanor. It doesn't mean that there are children involved. Loud music, twerking on a bus in the metro, and again, disrupting. He pled guilty to that as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where he is guilty. And this first set of 4 was in a previous court case, and he pled guilty. Because the figure is just a small fine. Hopefully it'll be a fine, and he would be out of Korea. But then they kept adding more cases and more charges. And so now the problem is with him in these previous guilty pleas, he is already a convicted criminal here in Korea. So when the sentencing comes into play, it's not going to be like a sentence for one charge. Hey, it's my first offense. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it, blah, blah, blah. Johnny doesn't do that. He doubles down, and he's just on his live streams. After he pled guilty, he threatened the judge. He threatened the judge's life, the prosecutor, and all this stuff, called him names in the whole 9 yards, which they're going to see. All of those videos have been forwarded on to the judge and all of those people. It's just absolutely crazy on what it ends up doing. It's not going to go well. Hopefully it will not go well for Johnny. And Korea really needs to slam dunk this guy as a lesson and as an example to other streamers that come to Korea, to not act a fool. So, we're looking at that. And as we go back to the big things, he had a recent, let me see if I can do this without screwing it. There we go. We had a deepfake charge. That's the one that's marked out in red, and it was a guy, Hong Man, and not guilty. And so, Young Men, that was the name of the guy, Young Men. He is a Korean streamer, and he's actually in jail at this point because he did some things, and then he tried to file a case against Johnny Somali. Well, it ended up trying to do deepfake, and then Young Man, said deepfake charge, and so Johnny said, well, I'm going to file a case against you for a deepfake, and so it kind of canceled each other out. So it's not really a big win for Johnny, and it's just for the fact that Young Man did want to spend more time in Korean jail. So that was dropped. But the imprisonment for that is up to 7 years. Deepfake count number 2 is a Korean streamer named Bong Bong. And Johnny did a deepfake. For those of you who don't know what a deepfake is, a deepfake video is where you take video footage of you and somebody else, and it's manipulated through AI to do certain things that they didn't do. And so, and in this case, somebody made a video, probably most likely Johnny, made a deepfake video of him and Bong Bong kissing. Well, kissing is considered sexual here in Korea, and it's not a good thing for Johnny, especially when he didn't have her permission to do it. And he knew it was wrong. He showed it on his live stream. Now, he can say that I didn't make the video, which could have been true, but he did show the video in streaming, and part of the law says that if you create and or distribute a deepfake video, knowing that it's wrong, you're guilty of that crime, which Johnny is, because it's him kissing her. He never kissed her in real life, so he knew that that was wrong. But he tries to glance over the facts. We did that one already. Yeah. Terry says Johnny is always screaming. He's an American, has freedom of speech, but he doesn't understand when you're in another country, you're under their law. And there's something else about that. That's kind of funny that he ended up doing. Johnny Panic, not related to Johnny Somali, says, unfortunately, there is money in madness. Yes, there is. But going back to Johnny Somali, he has actually claimed that I'm an American, and he pleaded with the judge to say, I have family obligations. I've been here too long. I demand a right of a speedy trial because I'm an American, which is a thing in the United States. As a U.S. citizen under U.S. court, you have the right to a fair and speedy trial. But the problem is, like it's been pointed out, Johnny's not in America. And just because you're an American citizen doesn't mean you're granted a speedy trial in Korea. It's still going to go through the process. And the fact that Johnny has not issued any apologies whatsoever to the judge just shows that, his lack of remorse. Going back to Youngman, who did that he had problems with, the exact opposite. Youngman has actually written letters to the judge expressing remorse numerous times. I think he's written like 6 letters to the judge saying, hey, I'm sorry, this was stupid of me, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. He's written 6 letters of apology and show of remorse. And so when it comes to, that could have a determination on whether he pulls the full sentence, does his full bid, I'm talking in prisonese, whether he does the full amount of time for his punishment and incarceration, or whether the judge is going to have some mercy on him. That is a huge thing here in Korea. You have to say you're sorry. If you don't, things are not going to go well with you. That's just the thing. And Johnny's not done that. And the fact that after all of these times that he constantly berates and insults and the judge, the prosecutor, the Korean people, and saying that, Japan should have, taken over Korea and finished the job of destroying the Korean people. It's just totally insane on what Johnny has done. But yeah, so now he recently had a court date recently, which was in October, and now he's got another one coming up it's going to be in February, so it's like 4 months away. November, December, January, February. Yeah, 4 months. It's 4 months away. He has another court date, and this is going to be for the deepfake video with Bong Bong, the Korean streamer, the female, and that's going to be huge. Now, again, that's pushed back. It should have happened in October, but Bong Bong wasn't there, and so now this pushes it back 4 months. So in Korea, if a witness is not there, they will just extend it out until that person can become available and show up. So hopefully she'll show up. And it's just absolutely crazy. Terry says, at one point, Johnny threatened the judge and said he would do something to the judge's wife. I know. How in the world, if you're in a foreign country, you're charged with crimes, you haven't been sentenced yet, and the judge, you're threatening the judge and his mother or his wife or the prosecutor or any other Korean for that matter, that's a special kind of stupid in my book. So while I am so glad that my life is boring, that I don't deal with this, because like Johnny Panic says, just be a decent human being. That's all you got to do. But the problem is Johnny doesn't have a moral compass, and so he does stupid stuff and continues to do stupid stuff. He did a live stream where it was like early hours of the morning. It was daylight. He's out in his underwear, drunk, harassing people. How he was not charged for doing that, I have no idea. But there still is an opportunity for more charges to be filed against Johnny, and there's more than enough evidence. I mean, public indecency. Does Korea have public indecency laws? I don't know. I would think so. If I was Korea and I was a prosecutor, and all of these videos have been forwarded to the prosecutor, Legal Mindset says, he ends up, he's got people that are submitting the videos to the prosecution saying, hey, in Korean law, this is this, this is this. Here's the video. He broke the law. There's more than ample evidence for Johnny to get more charges. So I'm kind of hoping for that because he is truly a disgusting individual, in my opinion. I hope he gets 5, maybe 7 years in a Korean prison. If he does, he will go to Chonan. It's a foreigner-only prison. So for all the YouTubers and the videos that they're making saying, oh, the Korean inmates are going to tune him up, again, prisonese are going to beat him up, is not true. Because he won't go to a Korean prison with Korean inmates. Korea is probably one of the very few countries that has a foreigner-only prison. It's up in Chonan. And the majority of those people are Chinese. Majority of the inmates are Chinese, and you got some foreigners, some other foreigners, Thai, Cambodians, some people from Sri Lanka. You have some U.S. citizens that are in there, Americans and stuff like that. But yeah, prison is prison. And it's not a bad-looking prison. Again, I've worked in prisons, and, it's not bad, but you're in prison, bro. It doesn't make sense. And, so there's going to be a sentencing, but it's not going to be this year. So he's going to be here for more than a year. He's already been here for more than a year. And now his next court date is going to be in February, so that's 4 months away. And that's if Bong Bong shows up to give her witness testimony. And there's a possibility that it could be extended out even farther. Because, here's another interesting thing. Here in Korea, the judges serve, and then they kind of rotate through positions. So the reason behind that is so that there's no favoritism in one certain area. So they rotate their judges within districts and so on and so forth. So that way, it kind of absolves any impropriety in one district. So that's why they rotate them around. It's kind of a cool thing. I think it's a good thing. But now he's going to get another judge. That could push this out from February and maybe another 4 to 6 months. So now you're looking February, March, April, May, June, July, maybe August next year. And depending on the caseload, we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty sure the judge that he has now is going to tell the new judge coming in, hey, here's what this knucklehead has been doing, this whack job, and blah, blah, blah. Give him a full briefing, and the new judge, I don't know, I have a feeling he's probably not going to like Johnny Somali. And the fact that he's not remorseful, he keeps doing stupid stuff, and his lawyer is clueless. Matter of fact, in this last court case that Johnny went to, it ends up that Johnny's lawyer, in one of the previous obstruction of business counts, which he pled guilty to, so that's a done deal, says that shouldn't have been a case. And it's like, sorry, it was a case. It was brought from the police to the prosecutor's office. They did their investigation. It warranted a case, so it went to court. Johnny went to court, pled guilty, boom, done deal. And now his lawyer's saying, well, it shouldn't have been a case, and it's like, no, he pled guilty. It's already done. And he videotaped him doing the crime. And the whole thing it was actually on the Lotte World one, the business count 3 of obstruction of business at Lotte World. They were saying the judge or the defense attorney for Johnny Somali ended up saying, well, it said that the business was shut down, the ride was shut down for 30 minutes, but it was only 22. So, and that's why it should have been thrown out. No, if you disrupt the business, the ride, for 5 minutes, you've lost money. It's that simple. So he's arguing over semantics on something that has already been ruled on and which Johnny pled guilty for. So he's got an idiot lawyer. I don't know, in my opinion. But then again, the lawyer has been provided by Hank Yu's parents who, Hank Yu has told his parents that he wished they would die so he could get the inheritance and that he hates them and he's said the F-bomb against them, the whole 9 yards. So he's grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth. And Hank Yu has not done his mandatory military Korean service, and how he got out of doing that by saying he was a college student overseas, in which was in the United States, and then he got picked up on federal gun charges because he lied, and he got a gun, and he wasn't supposed to, and so he spent a number of years in prison, and then he was released, and he came back to Korea. So I'm not sure why he's not doing his military service. That just astounds me. So I have no idea on how that's a thing, because people in Korea get charged for not doing their military service. And he's definitely one of those. So it's just this tangled web of stupidity. Ferrithus says, if you don't have any defense, you always try to look for some technicality. Always the same approach. Yep. Yeah. And the funny thing was the accounts of Johnny saying that, I want a speedy trial, blah, blah, blah. Well, you haven't been remorseful, and no, that's not how we do things here. It's Korea, another country. That speedy trial stuff is for the United States, and even then, it doesn't. He seems to equate a speedy trial as benefiting him, and really, no. You got to go through the process. It is what it is, And a speedy trial could be even worse, So again, Johnny doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's just. I severely hope he gets at least 5 years. That's my hope and dream, is that he'll get 5 years in prison, whatever the fines are, because you're looking at up to 50,000 won or 50 million won for each obstruction of business, 5 years in prison, or up to 50 million won. I don't know if those are stacked for each one of those things, that he'll get 5 years max for each one, so 5, 10, 15, 20. He can get 20 years for obstructing business. That's not how it works here in Korea. So some people have been saying, he's going to get 50, 100 years or whatever it is, up to 5 years. Well, 4 times 5 is 20. That's not how it works. You'll get the max is 5 years, and then for the next charge, it's kind of like halved or something like that. But it's rare that in Korea that they will give you the max punishment anyway. So my hope is that he'll get 5 years total for those obstruction of business, those 4 counts that he pled guilty to, and then he'll get like 5 years in prison. So, and then the Minor Offense Act, you're looking at 30 days detention or a fine up to 100,000 won. He's got 2 of those. It could be just a fine. If he can't pay the fine, then what he'll end up doing is that he'll have to stay in prison and work that off with labor. So, Ferrithus says, how much is 50 million in US dollars? 50 million is, we'll divide that, I think it's about $14.25 per dollar. So we're looking at $35,000. So $35,000 is 50 million won, give or take. So yeah, it's and again, I don't know. But in each of the instances of his obstruction of business, they have like a minimum, they have a maximum, and then they have like 2 middle other categories. Well, it seems, like aggravated. Well, Johnny is not the minimum in any of these cases. And so the recommendation for minimum versus, whatever, and aggravated and max aggravated, it ends up, it's like, again, those are just guidelines that the judge can use. He's not bound to do that, but those are the guidelines. So it could be that Johnny spends some time in prison. I'm hoping 5 years. And then after that, whatever fines he has to pay, and then hopefully he would be banned from Korea forever. And that will teach future streamers. So, yeah, 50 million won, 35 grand. That's a hefty sum. That's nothing to, to joke about. And then he's not even done because there's a couple 100,000 won for the 2 Minor Offenses Act, but the deepfake video, there's no monetary fees or fines. It's just up to prison up to 7 years. So, for the disruption of business, you can get up to 5 years. For the deepfake, if he gets guilty with that, that can be up to 7. So maybe 12 years, as I'm counting on my fingers and toes. That could be max 12 years. He won't get 12 years, in my opinion, from what I've seen, based on my time in Korea and following crime and so on and so forth. So I'm hoping 5. That realistically, I think he'll get 5 if he gets the deepfake. But yeah, it's just absolutely crazy on what's going on with him and that court. And he's still going to be here for a while. He's, like I said, now it's been pushed into February because of the bong bong thing, and then it's going to get pushed back even more because they're going to rotate the judges around. So that could effectively be another 1 to 4 or 5 months down the road to push this back even further. And so for those of you who are wondering, again, kind of going back to this whole Johnny Somali thing, all of these things, even though like the first 4 were at one court date, he pled guilty to those first obstruction of business. And then you had another court date where he pled guilty to the Minor Offenses Act 1 and 2. That was another court date. And then there's going to be another court date for the deepfake that's going to be under a different judge now. Well, they don't give you the punishment because they wait for all of this to be concluded and no more cases are going to be filed, and then they'll have their sentencing, and then they'll just take all of the fines, all the prison time, and the judge will take that into consideration and say, boom, here we go. This is the final amount of money. This is the final amount of prison time, jail time. But until then, we got to wait. So this is going to be a long and drawn-out process. It's going to be a while. But this is kind of the drama that, I'm not into much drama, but, I want to see justice prevail. And I feel sorry for the Korean people, or I feel sorry for the Philippine people when Vitaly went and did his stupid stuff, threatening, to hurt people or stealing their stuff from stores just to get clicks and views and make money off of streaming services. It's absolutely stupid. Nobody should have to put up with that, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. It is just not a good thing. Going back to the China thing, Japan, I know we're kind of doing an abrupt change, of course, but talking about foreigners in a different country, we're going to talk about China being in Japan. Is that segue good? Did I kind of redeem that segue? I think I did a little bit. The new prime minister of Japan, a woman, she's pretty hardcore. She's very conservative. She's pretty hardcore. And now they're going to kind of up the standards when it comes to their immigration. And there's a reason for that. And I totally agree with it. So I have some viewers that are in Japan or have been in Japan. And I got forwarded this video, so we're going to take a look at this. And let me get this all set up. And we'll see how this goes. So this is talking about the new, there's like 20,000 Chinese families face Japanese deportation, paying the price for bad behavior. And again, like I've said in previous videos, many videos, more and more countries are going to be ratcheting up and their immigration standards. And it's really coming down to things that you used to be able to do and take advantage of and abuse the system. Those things are not going to be abused much longer or any longer because we're finding out, hey, it costs too much money, and we want the undesirables out of our country, and we're gonna set some higher standards, and so that's what we're gonna end up doing. So with that, let's take a look at this video, and it was pretty interesting. So here it is. Decoding China, 20,000 Chinese families face Japan deportation.
Chinese panic and liquidate assets to return home. Japan tightens visa rules. 20,000 families face deportation, the price to pay for their bad actions. Beginning October 16th, the Japanese government will tighten regulations on the business management visa, a permit allowing foreigners to live in Japan by operating or managing a business. The reform aims to raise the eligibility threshold and close loopholes that have been exploited in recent years, particularly by Chinese nationals seeking long-term residence. For many Chinese residents in Japan, this new rule feels like a death sentence. The revised regulations will apply retroactively, giving current visa holders 3 years to meet the new standards. Those who fail to do so will be forced to leave Japan. The announcement caused widespread panic on Chinese social media platforms like WeChat and Xiaohongshu, where users shared messages of despair and uncertainty. Some families have begun selling furniture, liquidating property, or even returning to China. Under the new rules, the minimum capital requirement will increase from 5 million yen, about $33,000 USD, to 30 million yen, about $200,000 USD. Each business must employ at least one full-time Japanese worker or permanent resident, earning no less than 3 million yen annually. At least one member of the company must hold a Japanese language proficiency test N2 certificate or higher. The main applicant must have at least 3 years of business experience or a master's degree in management, and business plans must now be verified by licensed administrative professionals. Importantly, even those already applying for permanent residency will be subject to these rules, with no grace period. The government's move comes after years of concern that some foreigners, particularly Chinese nationals, were using the visa merely as a means of residence rather than to conduct genuine business.
Stop taking meeting notes and let ClickUp AI Note Taker do it for
you. Yeah, that is, they're dropping the hammer, because basically what we're going to get into after this.
Teen investigation by Asahi Shimbun found that around 20% of companies registered under this visa were shell entities, existing only to extend visas without hiring staff or generating revenue. A 2022 report from Japan's Immigration Bureau revealed that many applicants forged diplomas, bribed officials, and that 30% of permanent residents later became unemployed, but still claimed welfare benefits. Japan's national broadcaster NHK aired a documentary titled The Shadow of the Business Management Visa, exposing online posts by Chinese visa holders boasting about Japan's generous welfare benefits, including free education, affordable health care, and family subsidies. These posts quickly went viral, fueling public anger among Japanese citizens who complained that taxpayers are subsidizing foreigners. The controversy coincided with the rise of Takaichi Sanae, who became the first female president of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, on October 4th. A protege of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Takaichi represents Japan's conservative faction, known for emphasizing nationalism, economic security, and stricter immigration control.
Wow.
As a former Minister of Economic Security, she has openly called for stronger screening of visas, deportation of fake refugees, and tighter background checks to protect Japan's social stability. Analysts say that the 6-day turnaround from the policy's announcement to implementation, with no transitional phase, is unprecedented, reflecting the government's determination to demonstrate its resolve to conservative voters. Previously, the business management visa was seen as one of the easiest pathways to Japanese residency. With only 250,000 RMB, around $34,000 USD, one could open a small company, bring their family to Japan, send children to free public schools, and enjoy subsidized healthcare.
Wow.
Japan's social welfare system is among the best in the world, offering 99% universal health coverage, free education through high school, and low medical costs for seniors. Property ownership in Japan is freehold, allowing owners to keep both land and house indefinitely, another major attraction for immigrants. For many Chinese families, these advantages provided an escape from mounting challenges back home. China's economic slowdown, rising unemployment, tight political control, opaque legal system, and weak social safety net have left many citizens anxious about the future. The risk of property seizure, limited upward mobility, and growing restrictions on speech and education have pushed more people to seek stability abroad. For them, Japan represented a symbol of order, safety, and opportunity, a place where hard work could lead to a better life for their children. The continued surge in the number of Chinese applicants for business management visas, reaching 20,000 in 2023, raised alarms in Japan's political circles. The clever tricks employed by Chinese nationals to exploit loopholes have drawn increasing attention from Japanese society. The actions of individuals raised under CCP propaganda who are willing to do anything for personal gain accelerated the shift in Japan's immigration policy. Analyzing the entire process, from the hype surrounding Japan's business management visa to its eventual revisions, Chinese nationals have played an unsavory role. Their unscrupulous pursuit of profit has disrupted societal norms.
Yeah, that is huge. So basically what we ended up seeing is that Japan had, business visas for about $35,000 USD to where the point you could come to Japan as a Chinese citizen, open up a business, and then you could take advantage of so many rights that the Japanese citizens have. Like I said, the healthcare, subsidized housing, a number of other things as well. And it ends up, it's like many of these companies were just companies in name. Like I said, a number of these companies didn't even draw a profit. It was all under the guise, with falsified documents and so on and so forth. Yeah, you have a business, but it's not making any money. And so essentially what you end up doing is a number of Chinese were making how-to guides on how to get to Japan, exploit the system, and get free money. And yeah, that's not a good thing. So, and the fact that the prime minister is liberal, Democratic liberal, but she's a nationalist as well, is safeguarding the country, in my opinion. I don't know. And like I've said in previous videos, countries are going to crack down on immigration. They're going to crack down on the subsidies and the welfare and so on and so forth. This isn't something that's just unique to the United States. A lot of other countries are going through, and their eyes are being opened and saying, hey, we got a bunch of people here and they're not producing, they're not being good citizens, or both of those things. And we're paying a bunch of money to people that aren't citizens, and they're not building, they're not producing, they're not growing. Their business, it's all just a scam to be able to stay in Japan in this case, and take advantage of the welfare systems. And Japan is finally waking up and saying, hey, we've had enough of this. This isn't going to be a thing. So you're going to see this happen in Japan. We've already seen crackdowns in immigration with places like Thailand, other places, Malaysia, increase their income for My Malaysia's Second Home. I think it was like around $1,800 or maybe $2,000 a month. And now their monthly income requirement is like $8,000 a month. There is one other state within Malaysia that has a lower, but it's still, I think, like $3,000 or $4,000. So they raised their limits as well. It's still cheaper than the federal program. But you're seeing this crackdown and this pulling back because they don't have the money for it. Their budget is not to the place of where, hey, we can just throw money out to anybody and everybody. And so you're getting this more nationalistic views from these countries saying, hey, we need to be more fiscally responsible, and especially cracking down on people that are abusing the system. And they say, oh, I'm going to start a business. And it's like, well, you don't even employ anybody. You falsified documentation. You're not earning any money. So in other words, you're just being a parasite against our system. And so you're going to see, like I said, more and more countries are going to crack down, not only on the immigration side of the house, but with, services and benefits and subsidies and welfare and so on and so forth. If you can't be a productive citizen or resident of that country, your days are going to be numbered. We're going to see more of this, mark my words. Just like I said, they're going to crack down on immigration. And what did we see? Thailand cracked down on immigration. Another of other countries, increased their requirements because they're tired of getting people who are abusing the system. They're tired of getting the people who are not decent human beings, like Johnny Panic said. If you can't be a decent human being, those non-decent human beings are going to bring down your country. and they're going to be a plight to your country and to the society and to the other citizens of your country. So we're going to see more of this as time goes on, especially as there's the scrutiny of saying, hey, we've got a budget, we're spending this amount of money, and we're not getting enough money to replenish that. Either we're going to go in debt, but before we go into debt, which is always an option to take care of your citizens, if that's what you want to do, but let's look at the other expenditures that we have, and are they real? And that's what that's what it ends up saying. Ferrith says, I don't think it's as dramatic as the article makes it sound. If I understand correctly, they have 3 years to prove that they meet the new requirements before being deported. Yes, absolutely. So, but it still begs the question, like they said, they had 20% that were making businesses that weren't businesses at all by definition, and they just kind of slid through the cracks just to take advantage of the welfare systems and the subsidies and the free education and healthcare and all of that stuff. You're there to the visas to build a business, but your business isn't making money, and it's all I went into further research on this and seen reports of basically how-to reports on how to scam the Japanese business visa. So it's kind of a wide-known thing in China. And so that's why there was such a huge uptick in the applications for those visas. And again, if I don't mind people coming to another country. I mean, I'm a foreigner in another country, but I meet the requirements. But if you do something sketchy, yeah. But with that being said, with the new higher standards, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, there's 3 years that they have to meet the new requirements instead of just the $35,000 investment and being a business. Now you have to actually produce 3 million yen per year. You have to employ a Japanese citizen, which other countries, if you're a foreigner, kind of like what is it, Thailand, I think it is, Thailand and Bali, that if you reside there or you retire there, you have to hire a number of local nationals, kind of like a gardener or maid or something like that. So in other words, to help out the people of that country. In Japan, they're saying that you have to have and end up, you have to hire a Japanese citizen. You have to have some good educational requirements, because what they found is a bunch of people, I have this business. And it's like, no, you don't. You fake the paperwork. And so, now you have fraudulent entries in, for a visa, which I think would you should be kicked out for doing that to begin with. But 3 years, yeah, it's 3 years that they have. So they're going to have 3 years, but I still think they're going to see a huge reduction in the amount of applications for this, not only because of the monetary requirements, but because you have to have a proven business that makes 3 million yen per year. A lot of these were just skating along because they weren't making any money. So in other words, the whole shtick was that they're there to abuse the system and not actually run a business. So again, semantics and details matter. I think the context matters. But when you lie about documentation and education and things like that, that's very problematic. It's kind of like lying on an official police report or filing. We had people during COVID that said, "Oh, I have a business," and they got COVID funds for their business when actually they didn't even have a business. They falsified documents and so on, and that's still an ongoing thing. So I think that if you break the law, you should probably be kicked out anyway. But at least they gave them that 3 years. They do have 3 years to be able to get and meet the new requirements. So is it drastic? Is it dramatic? Oh, they're going to kick out 20,000 Chinese families. I agree. That's clickbait. That is clickbait. But some of the other articles that I've read on this change in Japan weren't clickbait, and it just really highlighted the problems. This video just kind of encapsulated all of the points in one easy to reference video thing. So, but yeah, if they don't meet the standards, it could be that a lot of those Chinese are going to have to leave Japan. which is interesting because, as I've said in previous videos, Chinese people can come to Korea and buy property, but Koreans can't go to China and buy property in China. So there's a big stink about that in the past here in Korea. And then they had the big, opening up to Chinese tourists with visa-free, visits and stuff. And then you got a bunch of stupid people that come over here and do stupid. I think the majority of Chinese people are decent human beings. I've met a number of people from around the world, and people from the Middle East, South America, United States, different Asian countries, Southeast Asia, the whole 9 yards. The majority of people that I've met have been good people, good, decent people. But it's the problem people that make it bad for everybody else. So, but again, I still think what we're going to end up seeing is more and more countries are going to be clamping down, increasing their standards for different visa systems that they have. And you got to have your ducks in a row. I fully expect the Philippines to increase their income requirements as well. And other countries that had low income requirements, the background checks are going to be more stringent than what they were before. And again, you're going to have countries that are not going to give subsidies to foreigners. You have to be able to prove that you can live in that country without being a drain. For case in point, our situation. For my wife and I, my wife has an F4 visa, I have the F1 visa. When we did our application and submitted that, we had to give federal tax returns. We had to do like 3 years of those. We had to do a year of our bank statements and showing how much money we have, what is the source of our income, our retirement income, and so on and so forth, and investments that we had. And it had to meet a certain level. So in other words, that we wouldn't be a drain on the Korean system. The healthcare in Korea is less expensive than a lot of other countries. And so then we also had to prove that either we would enroll in the Korean healthcare system, which is about $110 a month, or we had a healthcare insurance that would provide the same coverage or better, which we do with my military retirement healthcare. So we had to, and then there was the criminal background report. They had to have one for my wife. They had to have one for me. They had to, they had other documents that they had to look at to make sure that even if we come over here on the F4 and F1 visa, that we would not be a drain on the Korean society. For the F5 visa, I think it's the F513 visa, if you don't speak the Korean language and pass all their special tests in history and speaking, reading, writing, the whole 9 yards, the income requirement is twice the GNI for Korea, which is around 70, I guess that would be around $73,000, $74,000, somewhere around there. So you have to make twice what the gross national income is for Korea. And again, I think that's a great thing because you don't want people to become a drain on society. You don't want to tax the system of the country that you're in. You have to be able to provide for yourself and your family. So I totally support that 100%. And I've had people contact me. I've had people contact me complaining about how they couldn't do it because they don't make enough money to, do what we did or meet the income requirements for other visas here in Korea. And it's like expecting me, I don't know what they expected. It was almost like they're mad, and I know they're mad. And I know that they're just venting. So I get that. I let them vent and we chat and talk or whatever online, FaceTime, whatever it is. I let them vent, and I feel for them. Dude, I totally get it. It sucks, that you can't do what you want to do because you don't have enough income. But that's the rules. In the end, those are the rules. So either you're going to get to a place of where you're going to work harder to meet those income or meet those other requirements, and then you can come do what you want to do, or you got to find another country that has lower income requirements. But, one guy, and again, this is the minority, one guy was just like, he really wanted me to side with him and saying that Korea was bad and it's stupid and they should allow him. And it's like, you don't even meet the requirements for 1 year of the GNI. How are you going to get housing? How are you going to pay your bills if you can't meet even the minimum requirement for 1 year? I'm sorry, I can't. I can't be on your side. I empathize that you're upset and you're mad and so on and so forth. But I'm not gonna oh yeah, Korea's bad, Korea's terrible, because they won't let you come to Korea when you don't make enough money, and it is what it is. It's kind of like the rides at I know it's a poor analogy, but it's kind of like the rides at the amusement park. I remember when I was little that if you're not this height or higher, you can't go on the ride. That's all there is to it. You got to go on another ride, but you're not going to go on this one. It is what it is. I just reality has to step in. But I understand the need, especially for men. Men aren't really allowed to vent. And the way men are, we bottle everything up, we push it down and down and down and down, and then eventually we explode. And so we have to let that out. We have to be able to vent that out. And so I'll let people do that. I'm not going to be a jerk and say, well, whoa, stop right there. You don't make the money. That's it. You're just out of luck, dude. What do you. No, I'll talk with guys and the guys that I've talked to and just let them vent, just let it get it out. But at the end of the day, they still can't meet the requirements. There's nothing I can do that will change that, unfortunately, But I think there's a good you got to play by the rules of the playground that you're in. Faritha says, I know a few people would like to immigrate, but they can't because they don't have the needed degrees to qualify for the visas. Yeah. Countries set up their rules and you play by their rules. I mean, they're their own sovereign country, and so they have the right to make the rules. And, kind of like what you said there, it is what it is. There's some people that are probably good people. But again, those things are there for a reason, and it's not my call. So, it's not like I'm going to call the Korean government and, hey, there's this guy over here. He doesn't meet the requirements, but he's a really nice guy. Could you just bend the rules for, But it's not about that. It's just guys needing to vent, and I get that. And I've done enough counseling in prison and doing prison ministry and stuff like that I understand that it's like, you just need to let people vent. It's more about that than anything else. But that can also be the catalyst that can get people to get off their butt to really start working, be able to meet those requirements, or look for another place that doesn't have such high requirements, and they might actually end up, being better in another place. There's a whole big world out there. Check it out. Faritha says, I always feel sorry when I have to tell them, sorry, you can't do what I did. You don't have the degree. It really is pay to play. Yeah. Reality is, it is. But that doesn't mean, like Faritha says, it doesn't mean that you have to be a jerk to that person. And I've heard some stories of where people were like that, being a jerk. And it's like, I can't. Going back to Johnny Panic saying, just be a decent human being, But yeah, it's, if you don't meet this standard, you can't ride the ride. And it really is, because money is involved. Money is a factor, what the country spends for, otherwise you have a ton of people coming into, say, for example, Japan or Korea, and they start getting subsidies and all this stuff that are meant for Korean citizens, and they can't pay for their housing, they can't pay for their food or whatever it is. That's going to be a drain on the Korean economy and on the government itself, and eventually they're going to become insolvent. So there's a reason that these things are set into place. It's kind of like a home budget. In a home budget, we have things that we can buy and not buy, and limits that we need to stay under to remain solvent. Because if we don't, that's going to put our livelihood at jeopardy. And if I can't pay my rent or buy food, I'm not going to be able to stay in Korea. So again, I need to be fiscally responsible for my own home budget so that I can maintain and keep my visa here in Korea and provide for my family, me and my family. So it just is what it is. I always try to bring things down to like a personal level, like budgeting and so on and so forth. So Terry says there are hundreds of homeless expats in Philippines. They blew their money and got scammed out of it. They kept renewing their tourist visa. That's true. Matter of fact, I just saw a video. It's like 3 or 4 days ago. This Filipino lady had made a video and found this guy in this slum of the Philippines, unfortunately. And he had been there for like 10 years, overstayed his visa, and it was just like he's scraping the bottom of the barrel, and dude looked rough. Oh my gosh, my heart went out to him. But it's just like he blew all of his money. He probably got scammed in the process along with that, but he wasn't responsible. He didn't heed the red flags, and now he's homeless. He has a place to stay, but he's essentially homeless, and he's begging for money or whatever it is. And it's just, he can't do anything. And if he ends up going, at least from what I know, if he goes to the authorities and says, hey, I need help, they're going to find that he overstayed his visa. He can get charged and go to prison or jail. And it's like, well, what do you know? But Philippines is cracking down. They're cracking down on their stuff. But the problem is that there's tons of homeless and expats that are in the Philippines, but the Philippine government doesn't have the infrastructure in which to track these people, because once you're off the grid, they have no way of tracking you. So yeah, but they're taking steps to do more and more for that. So, but the problem is the main problem is that the Philippines hasn't developed enough as a country to have the same infrastructure or, the manpower. They don't have enough money to go after all these people who have overstayed their visas or, fraudulently staying in the Philippines. So, and then you have other countries like Thailand that has let way too many people in at times. And their standards were really low, and so they got a lower class of people and more criminal elements, and that's causing problems in Thailand. And of course, then the Thailand immigration system is changing from week to week. It's insane, and their government is so unstable. Banks closing foreigners' accounts, and people who have valid visas, they can't even get to their banks. They're closed or their accounts are frozen. How do you pay your bills if your account's frozen? And so a lot of people in Thailand are crossing Thailand out, and they're leaving. And so kind of interesting, we see Thailand or Philippines changing some of the standards of theirs as well. Which brings to mind the Philippines. I was talking about doing the SRRB visa in the Philippines. But then the recent earthquakes and volcanoes and that whole thing popped up, and the Ring of Fire, as I started to look more into that, that is getting to be a big problem. So, that needs to be on your checklist, considering, natural disasters and things like that, of the place that you want to retire to. So as it stands right now, we're kind of putting the SRRB courtesy visa on hold for the Philippines. I think we're going to go visit maybe January or February when it's really cold here in Korea. We'll go to the Philippines and kind of enjoy some of the sun and the beach. We'll do that. But kind of holding off on that as a plan B for retirement. Because it could be something changes in Korea. There could be some immigration changes in any country that you go to. There was a guy that I used to watch his videos, and it ends up he was in Malaysia. He was under the My Malaysia Second Home program. And it ends up that they changed it was the federal program, so when they upped it to $8,000 a month, and he was only making like $1,500 or $1,800 a month, whatever it was, maybe $2,000, but he didn't make that much. And so during that time of that change, there was a ton of people in Malaysia that had retired there. They're like, I've been here for like 10 years or 5 years or whatever it is. Am I going to get kicked out of Malaysia? And now I have to look for another retirement destination. And that's what he was really worried about. But they grandfathered those people in. And again, obviously, the people that didn't have any problems with law, they were good, decent human beings. So, yeah, they were really worried. But again, that could have been a whole different thing. They could have said, nope, y'all leave. We want people that make $8,000 a month or more. George pops up and says, hi, I'm sorry I missed a lot. I got slammed by 144 trick-or-treaters, our largest year to date. Wow, man. George, kicking out the candy to the kiddies. Massive scale, massive scale. Good job, George. So, yeah, that's what we got going on. A lot of stuff. We got the Choco Pie theft, the sexualized kids' clothing, which they stopped, which is a good thing because, honestly, I think that was a translational error. Didn't understand how there can be an alternate meaning to, come inside me. Halloween here in Korea, Chinese government, Johnny Somali, streamers, doing stupid stuff. And then we got on to, more immigration stuff and what's going on, meeting the standards. And really, I think what Johnny Panic said is it really comes down to no matter where you're at, just be a decent human being. So, Ferrithus, he pops in, he says, 144, wow, we're like at 15. Those are rookie numbers there, Ferrithus. You need to up those numbers. You need to get with the program. So far, George he's the number one spot, so we'll leave it at that. So while George is the number one trick-or-treating candy giving guy, Ferrithus, you're in second place. I'm last because we didn't have any trick-or-treaters at our place, so, there's that. We're going to go ahead and close out this video. Oh, since this is hitting me in the, finished up the mask. So there is the mask. I did the red in there. So did the final varnish coat and everything. So we got that going on. And we did that. So that came out really good. It fits and it works. Boom. So we got that. And then yesterday, I just finished up the rifle, and this turned out really, really good. You can see that there. We've got all shiny and all of that stuff you can see. We did a little bit of line work, cell shading stuff on that, and that turned out really good. And there's the other side. And again, I think the varnish on this just kind of gives that cartoonish cell look on it, and it turned out just really, really good. So yeah, we had a good time doing this. Looks out really good. And if they have the Halloween thing today, it's supposed to be between 3 and 8, so we're going to check that out and see. But yeah, we might end up doing our Borderlands thing. So yeah, I think that turned out really good. I was really happy with that. So the wife's got her mask, and she's got her pistol, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah. Wow, mask turned out amazing. Thank you. Yes, it did. I think it did good. Ferrithus also says they went to Disney World today, so I had to deal with trick-or-treaters. Ferrithus says, man, I wish I had your painting skills. You can. It's just watching a ton of YouTube videos and copying what everybody else does. And it's just, some basic stuff. And then you just learn more. And just kind of like what the stuff that you do is pretty amazing. But again, it's just doing that. George says 24 inflatables, 3 animatronics, and tons of printed decorations. So George is killing it on the Halloween stuff. Says nice on the stuff that we ended up doing. Yeah, it turned out really good. And again, that's the first time that I've kind of done that cell shading, coloring type of thing that we got going on. I thought that was really cool. And I'm going to continue working on that. And so, like I said in the previous video, I'm going to get some orange cargo pants and we'll do some cell shading on that. So even though Halloween is over, I'm going to continue building upon the Borderlands with this character, the psycho dude. And we'll continue on with the costume. We'll kind of do the wraps on the hands. We'll get some boots and all that stuff. I'm going to continue to build this into a full, we'll do a backpack. We'll do, maybe some plates or knee pads or whatever, some different accessories, bandoliers. So I'm going to continue building that over time. So, cosplay or whatever, something here in Korea, I can, boom, run and get that. Faritha says, it's not just copying. You need the eye for that. And I don't have that. Don't sell yourself short. Don't do that. All of this stemmed, to be honest, this all stemmed from me learning how to paint miniatures. I didn't know how to paint miniatures. And so I got into the little 32 millimeter miniatures, watched an obscene amount of YouTube videos on how to paint miniatures, and it just kind of grew from there. So, and once you get some of the basic techniques and shading and it's things that seem so overwhelming, at the time it's like there's no way I would be able to do that. I've been happy with my progress. So, but yeah, it looking back, it's like, yeah, it's not as bad as what I thought it was, honestly. So, but yeah, don't sell yourself short, bro. Yeah, you can do it just like anybody else. I just have way more time to pour into it because I'm retired. So that's another variable that comes into play. If you won the lottery and you did never have to work again and you could just do the hobbies that you wanted to do, you would do well. You would do well. But, right now you got some other things on your mind, that you have to deal with. But yeah, you would be able to do it. Okay. So anyway, it is almost 11:30 and I haven't had breakfast. I am dying of hunger. I am literally nauseous because I am so hungry. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the obligatory outro. What we have here, again, email address, coffee, whatever, some people over here bought me coffee. Best thing you can do is like and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing. Don't worry about the coffee. Just forget about that. But I enjoy the conversations that we end up having here. And again, if you subscribe to the channel, you get to see more of this, do more of the 3D printing stuff, which I'm going to continue to do, and more painting and whatever cosplay. I'm thinking about getting into doing EVA foam armor and stuff like that. I'm really being tempted by a number of videos that I've seen that is like, ooh, that could be kind of a good thing. So we'll see. Faritha says it's time to buy a lottery ticket. Yeah, we actually haven't done that yet here in Korea. We need to do that. So Faritha says, have a good day, Steve. I just got home and I'm reading here too, or eating. Yeah, I got to eat. I'm like starving. I think we're going to go out to lunch. And for everybody else that is here, George and Adam and Johnny Panic. Who else did we have on here? Adam Savak, the Adams that were here, and anybody else that watches after the fact. Thank you for checking out the videos and watching and supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. So with that, you all have a good one. And I will go get something to eat, and we'll see how the rest of the day goes. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you. Peace. Starving.